Good evening and welcome to DSU Debates. We are at the final day of our debate sessions here in the Student Union atrium. We have been joined in the studio by the lovely people who are running for VP Education, and later on tonight we will also be joined by VP Media Comms. So to start this off, we're just going to have a quick chat to Kira, who's our current VP for Welfare and Community. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, so could you tell us a bit more about this role then?
Yeah, so Deputy President Education, first of all, in the name, if the President isn't there, they've got to kind of step up to that role. And it says what it says on the tin, really. So education, all things education, that's why people are here at the university. So they'll have those boards and platforms to deal with any education matters. So previous years, we've won on anonymous marking with the TEF and all those conversations. We're in the room to make sure we're representing students and making sure that their voice is heard on all those matters. Works with school reps and course reps and basically running the union as well. So it's all the fun things from Freshers Week to events to the real serious things that are really affecting our student body. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much there, Kira. We are going to head straight into these debates now. We have got our team all ready and raring to go. So, with our first question, Ashton, over to you.
So Kelly, you've talked a lot about DMU replay in your manifesto. Is this not an encouragement for students not to show up to their lectures if we enhance the
This is something that a lot of the lecturers had this concern when we brought it up because of course reps. However, my attitude to it is the DMU replay system is a lifesaver for several reasons. Firstly, if you struggle to understand a lecture, you can't exactly turn around in the middle of the lecture and go, "Excuse me, I don't know what's going on, help, help," because then you look like a wally. Whereas with DMU replay, you can watch that lecture back. And then when you get to that bit that you don't understand what's going on, you can pause it, you can look back at your notes, you can do a bit more reading, you can do a bit more Googling, and you can learn it at your own pace, as opposed to having a lecture that's flying by in an hour, maybe 2 hours, according to the length of your lecture. Secondly, a lot of the response that the only reason that first years are piloting the scheme at the moment is because it's designed to replace the note-taking fund that was lost through the DSA account. To which my response to this is we have a fantastic dyslexia screening team in Student Gateway. However, with the DSA, you can't apply for dyslexia unless you have proof that you have dyslexia.
Okay, yeah.
And even then, it's a 3-month application from doing it myself. It's a 3-month process from applying to being assessed in the bus to see what your needs are and what the equipment is, to actually receiving the funding to say you're entitled to this, this, this and this. If you're a second and a third year where your qualifications are starting to count and your grades are starting to count, that's a quite long period of time to not only wait for you being diagnosed, but also for you to get that equipment in place. So whilst it's not ideal, DMU replay also helps fill that gap in essence until that student can be correctly supported.
So DMU replay is currently in effect, isn't it? But surely we should more advertise it, because I mean my lecturers don't use it. I know that for a fact. And I feel like if we're going to say like DMU replay should be something for everyone, then surely it should have been really forced out this year. And I feel like maybe saying it's not going to stop people from, I mean it's going to stop people from not coming to lectures but being more engaged. Would it not have made more sense to say DMU replay enhance the way we use it in lectures and with like seminars as well?
Well, I've had incidents where first years have come to me during my campaign and before my campaign when I spoke to students, and they've said, despite the fact we should be using the scheme, lecturers won't record the lessons because they don't like hearing their voice. And some students feel as if they're uncomfortable with the conversation. To which my attitude is, we all don't like hearing the sound of our own voice. I think that's just human nature. The biggest critic of a person is your own self. You guys could probably understand this. So I think we need to work with the lecturers and explain, look, you know, by having this device, you're targeting auditory learners who can learn by listening. You know, you've got this ability not only as a fantastic revision tool that I've had second-year law students come to me and go, I wish I had that. Why can I not have that for my revision?
Well, talking about that there, because we've spoken to a lot of people, especially whilst we were collecting the student questions,
yeah,
and asked them about DMU Replay, and there's second and third years who have had major access to this. And
yeah,
obviously one of the major things you were talking about in your manifesto was that you want second and third years to get access.
Yeah.
They already do, so where was this policy almost coming from?
So the policy came from, I was asking a couple of second and third year students one day in the kitchen, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about your course, what would it be?
Okay.
And they turned around and said access to DMU Replay because it's a life changer for revision. I understand that there are second and third year courses that are ahead of the game, that have that in place. And my attitude to that is hats off to those courses that are providing it.
Yeah.
But it's once again this whole issue of some courses being ahead than others, which is a big thing that I tackle in my manifesto. It should be everyone, regardless of course, should be on an even playing field.
Okay, wonderful.
So everybody should be entitled, regardless of year, regardless of course, to use the DMU Replay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So on to you, Ryan. In your manifesto, you talked about introducing a quota system regarding equality. Firstly, could you tell us a bit more about this, and also how is it that you're actually going to implement it?
That's correct. In my manifesto, I did mention the quota system. I believe that a lot of people in this university feel underrepresented, particularly from BME backgrounds, LGBT backgrounds, and other backgrounds, especially women. But I would implement it so that one person, you get 2 course reps. I would introduce a third, maybe a BME candidate, or one male, one female, so it's equal, and you've got more opportunities to feel comfortable with the person you're speaking to. I would implement that definitely in the course rep system.
Okay.
Also, possibly in societies as well. If sort of society quota. Of course, that doesn't mean that it has stringent policies for it. I mean, DMU football and women's rugby, for instance. The clues in the title. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so building on this further, you sort of said that you want to almost increase the course reps then by adding an extra one. But do course reps actually have that much of an influence over these problems that will possibly arise that you're trying to tackle?
Well, it's a good question actually. I think that they could benefit from a greater use of powers. For instance, for instance, looking at the placements and internships and boards like that. Yeah. If we created boards and allowed students to have more representation, I'm sure that the course rep system would flourish. I mean, not many people know who their course reps are, but if it was published on, say, My DMU, for instance, like your course reps are this, your tutor is this, as much, you could then get in contact with them easily and quite, it'd increase accessibility for them.
Okay, thank you.
Roz, we go over to you. So students get bombarded with surveys throughout the year about their course and about the university as a whole. How will you encourage your students to complete the surveys regarding their personal tutors in particular?
Yeah, they do. So in my manifesto, what I've said was that speaking to some students, they aren't happy with the personal tutor system. They don't get to see their personal tutors. So I did say that what I wanted to do when I first start is implement a survey for both students and the lecturers to get their feedback. We do have a lot of students, that, as you said, we get bombarded with emails. I ignore some emails. I'm sure most people ignore some emails. So as well as the emails, I will be putting posters up, asking lecturers, because I want to get the lecturers involved as well to see what they want. So hopefully they will be promoting it in their lectures as well, or I'll try and get time to go to lectures, speak to as many people as I can.
Okay, so you almost want to almost try and increase communication between the SU and students, don't you? Is that sort of what you're getting at with this policy? In regards to sending out
a survey and getting everybody's feedback, yes. But that's not what the policy is about. The policy is about communicating between the students and the lecturers. I know that there are lecturers out there who feel as though their students don't engage in it as well as they could do. So communicating between everybody, the both of them will improve on the service.
Okay. Thank you. So on to you, Martins. I've lost your question. There we go. So, you propose to make education an important aspect of DSU. Given that the DSU and the university are both very different entities, the Students' Union is focused more on the welfare of students and sort of understanding their needs and almost acting as almost like a work-style union in that sense. Much of DSU is also focused on activities. So how will you change the stereotype that many students see of not really having a huge influence over what the university does?
Yeah. Well, as we all know, DSU is really an important aspect of the student population here. I am really basing my manifesto and some points in there as well of informal education, which is also a big thing in 21st century as well. Regarding to sports and activities, which is a really big part of the student union, I have noticed that regarding employability and these activities, there could be a really interesting thing of creating skill-based workshops or on students sharing different skills. Especially, I know that there are more than 200 societies already currently in the student union, but there are some students that might be feeling a bit shy to join a society, that might be looking for a specific skill that the society doesn't really provide them with. Okay. And I would promote skill sharing workshops in which these students could come around, sit around, share a skill between each other, gain a new skill for their CV to put down, and promote employability through these free skill sharing workshops.
Okay, so you've got quite a few serious points in these in your campaign ideas, and your manifesto is very focused on really bringing change. But if we just have a quick look at your campaign video, a lot of people are seeing this. I mean, I'm not sure as to what the actual viewer number is now, because last time I checked it was 26,000.
It's currently on 27,700 views.
Well, congratulations on
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But how far is it actually reached in terms of videos?
I know, I'm going to be frank. I know loads of people think that video represents my campaign as a joke, but I would like to set the record straight. We are all living in the 21st century. The youth needs to be approached with the ways how they engage with the current pop culture, current society. And we all know that my video is based on a popular meme. And in this age and time, memes are one of the easiest and quickest ways how to get interaction between students, between people. Memes cover loads of different political problems, socio-economic problems, national problems, international problems. And as soon as people approach these memes online, they are more likely to actually go and investigate in these issues and find out about them, and not in a joke way of sense. And this video has reached as far as New Zealand, Italy. It has been viewed in Canada, Poland, Latvia.
So you've really managed to get a worldwide sort of campaign in a sense. But with it coming from a meme that obviously is very popular on the internet, do you think that students will possibly view, if you do get the position, you'll take it seriously? Because your campaign video is very much taking almost the mick out of yourself.
Yeah, I understand. I wouldn't definitely agree to that. I've been approached by students asking me, "Wow, you actually used an element of pop culture to promote political agenda," and I've never been unserious about it. In the video, in the video's description, there has been a link towards my manifesto.
Yeah.
I currently don't know how many clicks that link has gone, but everybody who has seen the video has have also got the opportunity to look through my manifesto, and it's definitely not meant into as a jokey way, because I definitely think that there are ways how pop culture could be implemented into actually delivering serious issues to a wider audience.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So Kelly, you have an idea in your manifesto for the student entry programme.
Yes, I'm so excited about it.
Yes, but there are thousands of students in Leicester. How will you select just 50 students to make it fair? How will you make it?
Okay, let me explain to you firstly where the number 50 comes from.
Okay.
The number 50 comes from the fact that this would be a pilot scheme. The idea would be that with every year, if the 50 students were successful, it would grow. So this year it would be 50, next year, 2018, 2019, it would be 100, 19, 20, 150, and, you know, by the time I'm old, grey, wrinkly, and hobbling my way to uni in my mobility scooter, you know, we're taking in 2,000 students on the student entry programme. Obviously, because it's such a new thing, I thought a small number to start with. Should it go wrong, I don't want it to go wrong. It's something incredibly passionate about. You know, it's only 50 students that it affects. So to answer your question on how I would select it, the students would apply, and they would have to have a variety of criteria to apply. First one, and I know it sounds a bit obvious, is that they would be looking to study a university degree. Not necessarily at DMU, but I would like to hope that I could speak to the VC, to the SU, about there being some form of, be it a guaranteed interview stroke offer or a financial incentive to have more students apply to DMU. But the student does not necessarily have to apply to DMU in question, as long as they're looking to study at a university in the United Kingdom. Then, once they've said, yes, I want to go to university, they would have to have at least one of a group of protected characteristics. Characteristics being, they identify as LGBTQ+, they come from a B&E background, they come from a low-income postcode, much like how the NCOP scheme that the Square Mile are currently doing with Leicester College and UOL, that's how they identify the mentees that we use as mentors. International students who are translating, transitioning into school.
So just to interject there, you sort of said that you'd only give it to people who have protected characteristics.
Yes.
Everybody has protected characteristics. It goes down to the fundamentals of age and gender. Everybody has an age, everybody has a gender. So is it only certain ones that are maybe associated with minorities, or is it just all broad?
The idea of the student entry programme to begin with was a way of DMU reducing the attainment gap from BMEs to Caucasians, women to men, disabled students to their non-disabled students. For instance, I was looking on the National Autistic Society's website yesterday, as a matter of fact, when I was doing some work for my dissertation. Out of all the autistic people in the United Kingdom, only 16% of them are in full-time employment, and only 32 are in some form of employment altogether. You know, that's an incredibly startling number, incredibly so. And so for me, starting up this programme, it's not only a way that we start reducing the attainment gap between BME and Caucasian, which is something I know Augustus and Artisham this year have worked incredibly hard to reduce with this year's BME representative. But it's building on that. It's building on the foundations that people like Amy, like Augustus, have already set. Obviously, yes, you're right. As well as having the protected characteristics, the ultimate thing for me would be that they would want this opportunity and they'd utilise this opportunity, which is why on the application form, each student would have to do an up to 500-word, essentially like a personal statement you would do. Because obviously, you know this from applying to university. The biggest thing that they always tell you when you're applying from a sixth form with the UCAS is your personal statement.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of it you can do in 5 minutes, but it's the personal statement that the admissions tutors go, he's, she, they have got the passion for the course.
Yeah.
So essentially, it would be that 500 word personal statement that would go, Brian from, Brian who identifies as bisexual really, really wants to use this. Jill, who comes from a ethnic minority background, really wants to do nursing and currently doesn't have the facilities to do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So above all else, I want that passion.
I'm just going to have to stop you there because we are running out of time.
Go for it.
We are going to have to move on to some student questions now. So we went out into the student body on Monday and asked as many people as I could get to get some questions that they wanted asked to the members who are going for the DP for education. So the first major question that we have, and this is open to all of you to have answer, the Erasmus programme, which was set up with the European Union. Obviously, with the current political climates, this is obviously something that the UK will be removing at some point. So what would you personally, all of you, like to instill into the SU to protect current students on the Erasmus programme and also students who will not only become EU students now, but international students? So how are you going to address this?
Sorry, would you mind if I go first?
No, yeah.
Well, as a politics student and a member of the Labour Party, we campaign strongly for Remain of this. We still don't know, and no political party knows the ramifications of the EU Brexit bill. One thing is certain, that is we've got to start at home and also work on those students who identify with DMU and protect them in those places. It's a good question, and actually I would say that I don't actually have the answer for it, at least I'm being honest.
So would this be something that if you got the position you would immediately start looking into? Because these students who are part of the Erasmus programme at the minute, there's the bill that has recently just been passed means that the government doesn't need to protect these students who are living here and studying here. They could be sent home at any point. So what is the university going to do to protect them?
Well, I think we should ring-fence funds into protecting those students who are on placement elsewhere, going on DMU global trips, because it's only fair that they get the best education possible from their experiences abroad. With particular reference to this country as well, those who come from the EU and face this on the other side of the spectrum, we ought to protect them and negotiate with their universities if there's some sort of agreement we can come to with regards to funding for their students, as well as we support them here.
Okay.
I think support is the greatest thing that we have, and we misuse it.
Okay, wonderful. So if we just quickly head over to you, Martins, because I know you probably have a more interesting view of this, because you are an EU student, technically, aren't you?
I personally myself am an EU student, and I have worked on many European integration projects regarding youth work and voluntary service as well. I've spent 8 months in Italy doing a European voluntary service, which is designated and is broader project or sister project of Erasmus as well, which delivers students and young people from all over the European Union to participate in a vocational project for a period of time of up to a year in European Union. Since then, European voluntary service has been decreased in the amount of intakes, and it has been focused more on Erasmus Plus program. Erasmus Plus program has been around for a very long time, and it's important for students to understand that obviously we as DP of education can't imagine or predict what the government is going to decide regarding Erasmus Plus students. Obviously, there are going to be changes in the way how European students or European nationals, even in this sense, how they are going to have the rights to live, study, work here. But to a further extent, as an EU student, I feel that as long as you've started an Erasmus project, and as long as you've started to be an EU student, let's say, this year, because we all know it's going to be drastically changing in the next few years, is that the main importance is to finish your courses that you've started now. Have no worry about anything the government might be implementing in the future, and as long as you've started now, there should be a way how you can finish your course without worrying about the way how Brexit is going to turn out, how Article 50 is going to be tackled, and how Erasmus Plus system is going to be organised in the United Kingdom.
Brilliant.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you. So obviously universities cost an extreme amount of money, and students wanted more textbooks in the library. Like, do we think that maybe online or some other kind of access would be more able to you'd be able to implement?
Yeah, Roz, what do you have to
one
say?
of the points that I've created a video about it on my social media. It's something that I've implemented at my own workplace at the moment. Is so it's like the library, but people can come and donate books. So one of the things that I want to implement is a free library here, because I've got loads of books at home which I'm not going to use again. And I have to be honest, I don't want to sell them online. That's time consuming. So I'm more than happy to come and donate books here, and people can come and take them, keep them, or bring them back. So that's something that I'm looking at doing, is having somewhere where people can donate books and then people can take them for free.
But do we think students are more likely to sell them to gain back some money that they've spent?
Yeah,
like
it's
second or
possible,
third-year
but there
students?
will be students like myself who have got so many that I just can't be bothered to sell them online. It's time consuming. It's just a scheme. We'll see how it goes. It may not work, or it might be excellent.
Well, is that not something that the Students' Union library that you were saying you could set up? Could this not be a maybe purchasing second-hand books from the students, so that the students do get a bit of money back that they can use for other things in their studies? So stationery, obviously a lot of students find that's quite expensive to buy, and although we do have the supplies store in the SU, it still can be quite expensive to buy from. So how do you almost respond to this?
So we're thinking of stationery and not just a
It's
free...
like providing them money
yeah.
in return for the textbooks that aren't being used anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if students would prefer it to work that way, that would be something that I would look into. It's just that sometimes the other students would like the free books, so we'll see how it goes. We might have both systems working.
Okay, and you would like to add something there, yeah?
Yeah, one of the things that Amy Chapman, for those who are a bit younger, she was the Deputy President of Education before Augustus, introduced in her second term was a book swap. So students could bring in their old textbooks to sell, and then students could buy those books at discount prices. This element of textbooks is something that, as a Deputy President of Education, I really want to crack down on. I don't know if you guys know, but they've just shut the DMU bookstore that used to be up by Hugh Ashton, which obviously quite a few students used to buy their textbooks from, because that used to be your main place of buying them. So obviously students are now sat there and they're kind of as if their luck's run out. One of the things I'd be advocating with lecturers that Hours for English have done this year is, as well as giving us the hardback recommendations for a play, for a textbook, they've given us links to Kindle versions, so that way you could download it on your laptop, on your tablet for a remarkably cheaper price. You know, the most expensive I'd have to pay would be £2, as opposed to that being my cheapest paperback. And that was a way that we could buy the textbooks there and ensure that there was a plethora supply, because as long as you had that Kindle link, you always, you know, you can never run out of Kindle books because it's always online.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, all of you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for your debates. Congratulations on getting through as well. And I wish you all the best of luck with the campaigning. So the results show will be tomorrow between 6 and 7 o'clock. That is live from the SU as well on Demon TV, so you can tune into that. But now we are going to go to a short break, and we'll be back with the VP Media and Communications candidates. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. We have just listened to the DP Education, but we are now heading back to the VP Media and Comms. So we are joined on the set by the wonderful Emily Frost and also the wonderful current VP for Media and Communication, Mike Mays. So just so we get a better understanding of what this role actually entails, we've also got Kira on the side for us.
Hello. The Vice President Media and Communications, again, kind of says it all in the title. They're kind of responsible for really working with Demon Media and all the front runners to kind of make that the best media student group ever, and work with the other exec and get all those kind of communications out so everyone knows what's going on with it in the Students' Union, and all the different activities that we have on and what we can actually do for them. And also, of course, represent all the students, which all of the roles kind of cover, be a trustee for the union. So yeah, that's that in a little nutshell. Ooh.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Kira. It was a bit of a quick turnover there, wasn't it? But we are now going to start the questioning of these two candidates here. And this is obviously something that is very close to Demon TV's heart, because this person will figurehead Demon Media Organisation. So I'll head over to you, Ashton, to ask this first question.
Hello. So Emily, you want to increase student awareness of the events and with the executive team by ensuring that DSU place more trust in Demon Media and other social media platforms. How do you plan to do this, and to ensure that there is fair coverage for every society, because there is loads?
So currently at the moment, recently they had This Girl Can social media event. Unfortunately, it was only maybe a week or so before the event. It was actually created on Facebook, and maybe a few hundred females were invited to it. Now, overall, there are 22,000 students in the university. 58% of those are actually females, so that wasn't nearly enough. So essentially what I would like to see happen is there should be more things like Facebook groups, tweets going out, people being invited. I know emails are not the most effective way to contact students, but whether that's more notifications that go to people's phones or just general advertisement on social media, because at the moment they are so scarce, people tend not to see them. I know Facebook's not the easiest way to communicate, purely because it relies on students being friends with people on Facebook that maybe are members of staff and spreading by word of mouth, but that needs to be advertised a lot more, whether that's through posters around the university or even going up in lectures and chatting more about what it is. To cover everything equally, you'd need to make sure all the societies and sports teams were aware that the student union is actually an open union. At the moment, I don't feel that students necessarily know they can walk in at any point, especially after speaking to them this week. They did not realise they are welcome to walk into the office at any point that they wish. So it's a matter of encouraging students to do so, to come in and be very proud. I spoke to a footwear student this week who says someone on their course has just started designing for several high street stores, but nobody knows about it. She would love to have known that she could walk into the student union office and be able to tell people that, or that Street Law have won their varsity match recently against UL. Things like that. So it'd be increasing awareness that students are allowed to do that, so we could cover everything, but also to keep in touch a bit more. At the moment, the relationship with activities is not as strong as it could potentially be. Therefore, by increasing that bond, we're more likely to hear more about the interaction and the things that go on in sports teams and societies, because there's a lot we could still cover.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you very much. Mike, we're moving on to you now. So you want to make the voices heard at DMU, so lobbying on issues key to students, including key printing and more online submissions. This is an issue that is mentioned so much but has never actually been changed. So how will you actually ensure that this will be done?
Okay, so actually, I hate to contradict you, but there has already been some really big progress on that this year. This year we managed to lobby the university to move dissertations to be an online-only submission rather than having to cause printing. So already we're starting to see the university move towards online-only submissions. And I basically want to see that rolled out to a greater extent. So I certainly, while I was at university, I had a lot of modules, and speaking with students this week have found that a lot of other students have modules where they submit something through Turnitin, they then print it out, bind it, and have to submit it in person as well. So I'd like to work with the university through the likes of the Academic Quality Committee, faculty academic committees, such as those that I already sit on, to establish a way that we can really support academics to have some reprographic support so that they can actually have printed hard copies. a lot of them prefer to mark hard copies, but also to really ensure that students aren't paying for the printing costs. In terms of actually getting cheaper printing, I've had a few conversations in the past with ITMS which suggest that there are a number of technologies which have come to light since DMU really invested last in its printing, which would essentially make it so that each page requires less in the way of ink, less in the way of toner, and that in turn brings costs down not just for the university but for students as well. There are much cheaper printing technologies available than those which we currently utilize. And so I'd like to work with ITMS and with the university to secure an investment probably similar to those which I've already managed to convince the university to give in the past, so that we can actually get those cheaper printers rolled out throughout campus and make those accessible to our students.
Well, could I just quickly ask, you said that you managed to secure investments in the past.
Yes.
Obviously, for a few first years, I mean, I definitely am completely unsure of what the actual investments were. So could you just give us an idea of how much money was actually invested in it?
Absolutely. So right towards the start of this year, along with the rest of the executive team, I was involved in the inception of what became the #LoveDMU campaign, which the university rolled out. And that included things including a total of £885,000 towards people's hidden course costs, additional course costs being things like art supplies, materials that you might need to use throughout your time at university. There was also another £60,000, I believe off the top of my head, I'd have to double check the figures, towards disabled students being able to go on DMU Global trips, because there's more cost associated there. There was more funding towards sports teams, there was more funding for ITMS support for Apple Macs, and in total I think that came to around £3 million, which is a pretty sizable investment considering that's roughly the same amount of money as we've managed to spend on this wonderful new building that we're sat in.
Wonderful, thank you.
Brilliant. So Emily, you want to strengthen the bonds between societies and Demon Media by hosting training days and providing coverage of all their events and stuff. But can you elaborate more on how you intend to do that? Because there's like a lot I think people want to know about it.
Yeah, of course. So the general thinking behind it is at the moment, Demon Media do already run various training sessions, whether that's within TV. We've done some in design, teaching things how to use various Adobe softwares, essentially. Now, from speaking to various societies and sports teams, they would love to have more coverage of all of their events. But then we know, as Demon Media members, we don't always have time to do everything. So at the moment, students aren't meeting in the middle between sports teams and societies. So the idea would be is to offer the training we already provide to our own members, but more to society and sports teams as well. So lots of them have an interest in media. When we chat to them, they find the idea of it fascinating, but they wouldn't know where to begin. So it would be doing things like the sessions we already run at the beginning of term to show them whether it's how to use a camera, how to present on air, even how to do things like newsread, how to write an article, just to see how we work as a media group. Because at the moment, I feel there's a massive they're not aware necessarily of what it is we do, which creates problems and clashes. Whereas if they understood what we did, then they would feel more comfortable approaching us. So essentially it would be to make them more aware. It could come in a range, so it might be that their committee members want to come along. It could be just members of their societies in general, just in case they, maybe they have an interest. But essentially what would happen then is it could be utilised by the teams, whether it's so that they can give us the right information to write the correct match report, whether it is that when they ask for varsity footage, we actually can produce some that they want, because quite often, from what I've heard from Demon Media members, is that they'll say, can you make us a video? Yes, of course we can. But it's never quite what they want. We've written up match reports where people aren't happy with the outcome because we've not been given enough details of what they actually wanted. But that's not necessarily anyone's fault. It's just a miscommunication because no one's really sure. They're not sure what to tell us. We're not sure what they want. So we're trying to do the best we can. The media training sessions would ensure that everyone is on the same page and we can work better, much more effectively.
So back to you, Mike. You'd like to support Demon Media through the transitional year that we're obviously experiencing. We've effectively lost a large number of our frontrunners who are the major management of a lot of Demon FM, Demon TV, the Demon as well. So if you want to provide more opportunities and possibly give more control to Demon's membership, shouldn't you have already planned how to actually help Demon Media out before a lot of these massive changes happened? Or?
So actually I had started thinking about that. A lot of the work that I was doing with the consultancy way back in October, bearing in mind that the changes to the frontrunner scheme, I think they were first announced either early February, late January. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But yeah, as I say, getting the consultancy in October, we'd already identified that one of the major threats to Demon Media is the potential change to frontrunners. The reason being that we knew that the frontrunner scheme was first brought in by one of our previous Pro-Vice Chancellors for Teaching and Learning, a gent named Michael Young, who had come from Exeter University, who had also come up with a frontrunner scheme and also included it within their student media. And what happened there was the frontrunner scheme disappeared out of Exeter, much as it's currently being phased out at DMU. And their frontrunner scheme the changes in the frontrunner scheme massively impacted the student media, which is why that we'd started to get sort of various ideas in place, talking on a sort of fairly loose strategic level about sort of what sort of additional support we'd be able to give to a potential volunteer management scheme.
So just to interject there, a lot of people who have been, who have obviously found out about these changes, we've only sort of found out in the last 2 weeks. And this has led to a lot of Demon Media members, especially coming towards us during these debates, to say that they've almost lost faith in the management of Demon Media. So that obviously includes yourself, and then obviously the high FM management, the high TV management.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how are you going to repair this loss in faith? Because I know I personally do feel it were you always looking out for our best, the best, were you looking out for us, or was it more just you were seeing what would happen and then it was, oh, the members will accept it because they have to accept it?
Well, the changes in frontrunners, as soon as I found out about it, I believe there was 2 days between when I found out, it was a Tuesday, and then 2 days later I had a meeting with management and with members where I expressed the changes in frontrunners. So if it hadn't been found out until the last couple of weeks, that would be because managers had not done as I'd asked and translated that to...
But I think the focus that these people had was rather that the idea we were losing the frontrunners. A lot of people noticed that and they sort of got over that. But recently we were informed of the change of how management was going to be moved in. And obviously the idea that it would have to be elected due to the ideas of charity and all the laws surrounding that.
Yeah, the Education Act 1994.
And a lot of people did feel blindsided by that and would like to know how you will repair the loss of connection that these people have felt.
Yeah, now I kind of have a point of contest there because I don't fully grasp how giving more voice to the members, rather than having an appointed system whereby a single group of an interview panel essentially can choose who is going to be in management, giving that voice to membership, as is what we see through all other student groups, results in a lack of faith. I think that it's a dreadful thing that members don't have faith in one another. And all I can really say is that once it's rolled out and we see that Demon Media continues to exist and co-inhabit very well, it oughtn't be a problem. What I'm doing, as I've expressed to Demon Media membership, is providing a number of different potential models by which Demon Media can operate. And the one which I am personally backing would see a grand total of 4 roles, which are the more political roles, the heads of strand roles, be elected, while all the rest would remain appointed. So anyone who might want to go for live events, for essentially any of the skill set based roles, would still be finding themselves in an appointed system, except they'd be more directly managed by the sort of the management structure, so by the station managers, by the deputy editors and so on. As I say, I have absolute faith personally in our membership, in the decisions of our membership. And I do know that Demon Media operated in this fashion for, I think, 17 years before frontrunners came along. And so it can do again, essentially. In terms of actually repairing that lack of faith, as I say, it's very, very saddening to hear that people have a lack of faith in democracy, something that I personally am very much in favour of. I'm very much in favour of giving more power to the membership so that they can shape student media as they want to see it. But I think the faith will come when we see, much as happened when we moved to activities at the start of the year. A lot of people had a lack of faith there, and yet it's been seen throughout the course of the year that actually we're being looked after by people who have almost single-handedly secured for this institution an Investors in Volunteers accreditation, a nationally recognised accreditation for supporting volunteers, and I genuinely believe that they will continue to do so for Demon Media volunteer management. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't.
Wonderful, thank you.
Emily, so essentially you've said in your manifesto you would like to lead the restructure of Demon Media because obviously everything has changed, it's very different. And essentially you want to like develop it more than what it is already. Can you like elaborate more for...
Yeah, of course. As Mike's just covered, the fact that we've lost frontrunners isn't brilliant. It's not a welcome change, but it has functioned previously, as does many other universities, without paid positions. In regards to a restructure, it's not so much a matter of taking everything out and starting again. It's more looking at the fact that we could streamline some roles. For example, sports is quite erratically dotted throughout Demon Media at the moment, as is news, so on and so forth. It would be lovely to see the roles more streamlined, so they're all working together under one person who leads them, because at the moment we've got one editor in one strand, we've got someone else editing in another, and unfortunately content isn't equally balanced. So it would be really nice to see all strands working together under a more collaborative structure. At the moment it's so disjointed that quite often you'll see Demon Media content being put out that's not consistent with itself. I mean, in regards to branding, content, who's covered what. So it would be good to see a restructure that makes sure that everyone feels that the roles that they want to go for, because obviously there's a lot of talk about who's going to go for what and what's actually even going to exist next year. It would be nice to see some of those roles are protected, because obviously people have been aiming for years to get to these positions. I know I worked my way up, and there was a position that I wanted to get, and I worked to get there, and I know a lot of members are still working their way up. We have a lot of freshers who aspire to go into those positions, and that's a fantastic thing. But for them to be worried that the positions might disappear, I want to stop that from happening. But at the same time, we need to make sure that they're not going into a system whereby we're copying what we did before and it's still just as erratic. We need to make sure that people who are coming into the positions aren't feeling hard done by the fact that they're doing just as much work, maybe even more work, considering how big Demon Media is now getting, but not being paid. So it's going to be a matter of making sure that everyone's got the roles that they want and they're being protected, but they're equally and evenly balanced, with probably a better job description, because I know several people, regardless of whether they were paid or not, have no idea what their job was meant to be. It's got lost somewhere along the way. Obviously, I know personally in our strand we did try and write those up, but they were inconsistent with other strands. So it would be nice to see that across the board, that they all make sense together and it's thoroughly looked at so that everyone covers everything. So, for example, it's not just FM's responsibility to cover media for SRAs, for example, that the other two strands have that same responsibility, because at the moment there are massive imbalances between the strands as to who represents what and who gets involved in what. And that's just unfortunately carried down the line because it's never been defined. We have changed massively as a media group in what we get involved with outside of the university, not just within. So to make sure that all the roles understand what they are and what's going on would be a fantastic thing. As I say, we've got a lot of first years and it would be nice to see them supported and understanding what it is we do.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So we're now going to head to some student questions. For this role, we did get hundreds of questions specifically aimed at individual candidates, so we have tried to keep it as fair as possible for this one. But for the first one, obviously, Mike, you have rerun. You're rerunning this year, aren't you, for the same role?
Yeah, that's right.
So a question that was submitted was regarding your manifesto last year. You said you'd like to set up a production company to, as you say it, in a role, one of the main things I would like to be able to do is establish a production company for DMU's creative talent to be able to find paid work.
Yes. How's it going?
How is it going? Has it started, or is a brick wall suddenly been developed?
No brick wall whatsoever, no. It's been actually really exciting and really interesting to work on. As you'd find if you looked at any of my scrutiny reports, it's something that constantly gets brought up and something I'm constantly being scrutinised on. I essentially have found that a number of other models do exist throughout the country, including at Loughborough, who have an organisation called Aura, which is a student union owned and operated essentially a production company that finds paid work linking local businesses with various video photographic talent within Loughborough University. By contrast, there's also another thing at University of East Anglia called Make Media, which is a university-owned and operated production company, which similarly tries to link local businesses with talent actually at the university.
Okay. So if we just go back to what's happening here,
yeah.
A lot of students would like to know where this media company is, because a lot of them would have loved to got involved this year.
I was moving on to it, I really was. So again, that is something that you'd find if you looked at my scrutiny reports. I did express at the start of the year that setting up a company is no short order. Finding out some form of partnership agreement, essentially, to cut a very long story quite short, through looking at these different models, and actually I'm currently in the process of arranging trips directly to Loughborough, where I've been already and looked at Aura, and to the University of East Anglia. Looking at those models, I think that something of a partnership between union and university would be of the greatest benefit to the most students at DMU. I actually want to achieve something that neither of those have done, to roll it out to other creative things besides video and photography, such as graphic design and so on. So essentially creating a business and creating a partnership agreement between the union and the university to truly establish something like this is no small feat. And consequently, it's pretty big. And consequently, it was something that I really didn't want to rush. I expressed towards the start of the year that my aim was by the end of this academic year, so you're talking around May, June, to have the company established and starting to look for its first commission, essentially. In my role as Demon TV station manager last year, I did manage to get a number of commissioned works for Demon TV, the ruling for which, unfortunately, has changed. And so by solidifying a production company both within the union and university, I want to legitimize and essentially formalize the process by which students can find this sort of paid work in creative formats. In terms of where it is right now, a sort of model is really being fully firmed up. Agreements are being made. There's lots of... So
it's almost like the foundation stage of it. The foundations have been laid, and if you get the position re-elected this year...
Certainly I'd continue to work on it, but even like regardless of whoever of us get the role next year, there will be a handover process whereby the work that's been done so far can be built upon. It is largely foundational, but as I've expressed through my scrutiny panels, it was always expected to be. Like I say, this is no small feat. It's something tremendously ambitious that I'm still very, very excited about. Other things that have cropped up this year with changes to our senior management team in the union, winning SRA-Con out of the blue, have meant that my commitments are broader than I'd initially expected, and that I'm spread thinner than expected. But nonetheless, work has continued towards this, and it is something that I fully intend to realise and have established by the end of the academic year, as I've said all along.
Okay, wonderful.
Brilliant, thank you. So some of the students were wondering about the longevity of Demon Media, hard word to say. And we're reaching a point creatively now with Demon Media that we've got, we're being pulled down by the lack of capable hardware, and I just wanted to know, do you have any ideas of how we can develop that? The people in Demon Media are worried about the way that, I wouldn't say the way it's being handled, but the way that we're developing at a faster rate than maybe we are capable of at the moment.
Obviously, coming from the magazine background of Demon Media, I know that we are quite often sorely in need of various softwares, and we are held back quite significantly by how much software we actually have. And I definitely think this is down to the fact that we need better management of what we can use and what's available to us. It was only in the last month it was made aware to me that as a staff member I was able to get Adobe software, which is actually what runs my strand essentially. It's software that is very expensive, but also being able to know where we can find this hardware and software on the university campus, if there's places where I can find rooms whereby I can teach members and we can actually build our strand together. I know in terms of obviously the other more technical side of the strands, it's difficult with things like AV loans in terms of I know sometimes we need a lot more equipment than we're actually capable of, and In my eyes, it's a matter of working alongside them a lot more closely. I know there have been misunderstandings over the course of the year as to what equipment we can have, what we're allowed, and when we can have it. I do believe very firmly that's a matter of talking to different faculties in the university, seeing what they can offer us and what we can offer them in return, to make sure we have that software, because it's so expensive for students to buy it. I know personally, even with a student discount, I couldn't afford the Adobe software, but I have to have it to run the Strand, so I'm very well aware of how much pressure is being put on us.
So are you sort of suggesting that as members of Demon Media we should get automatic subscriptions to Adobe, the packages that Adobe offers, because I'm sure a lot of the people who run the TV, the magazine and obviously radio, the main software we do use are Audition, Premiere Pro. These are all really expensive programs for students to buy themselves, even with the Adobe student discount. So should the university be providing it with us, or should the SU be providing us automatically?
I think it's more the fact that we need to know whereabouts on campus we can access this software, because personally I wouldn't necessarily know where I would be able to go. Coming from both an English and a design background, I know where I can access certain softwares that I need, but for people to actually be able to go in and access them, for example, we know that the studios in Queens are something that FM can sometimes access, depending on the time of the day, and obviously we've got the new studios as well. Not so much that the university could not afford to give every single Demon Media member Adobe. As much as we would love that, don't get me wrong, I think it's just a matter of utilising what the university can give us and being aware of the space we have, because sometimes I don't think we're able to utilise rooms in the university, spaces, software that actually we could quite easily use. It's just a matter of asking the right people. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be feasible to get everyone membership to Adobe, but to know where we can find it is a completely different matter.
Okay, wonderful. So moving on to another question regarding hardware again. What about breakages that happen? Because obviously this hardware is extremely expensive to buy. So how would you be able to cope with suddenly getting a bill for £10,000? How would you be able to cope with that? Say if the Vision Mixer broke.
Okay, I mean, the Vision Mix is worth 1,500, so 10,000 is a bit much. But essentially, if Demon Media wanted to take out insurance for their own owned equipment, that is something certainly that they could look at. This year, I've made strides towards giving Demon Media more control over its budget. In previous years, there was sort of no transparency whatsoever as to what Demon Media had in terms of a budget, and any expenditure went directly through the VP Media and Comms. This year, I've tried to, again, put more hands into the power of the membership, and indeed the management in this instance, by providing them with a budget that they can spend. If management wanted to spend money towards insurance, then I wholeheartedly support that. I've also taken a great number of steps towards ensuring that Demon Media will have an increased budget in future years, such as working with the Faculty of Technology to ensure that any students who make use of Demon Media equipment, space, things like the radio studios that we mentioned previously, will actually have their membership funded by the university. Each of those £10 increments is going to add up to quite a substantial amount of money, which hopefully will allow us to invest in things like a new Vision Mixer and things that we so desperately need. Coming back slightly to the previous role, just purely because I never quite got a chance to, the previous question, sorry. I never really got a chance to respond to that. In terms of equipment, I have visited a lot of student medias up and down this country, and I can assure you from experience that we have significantly more than most. Now, certainly, I always want to see that increased. I want us to see us have the most of any student media across the entire country. However, saying that it inhibits our creativity, in fact, I'm not sure that's accurate. I think that it actually gives us more of an opportunity to flex our creative muscles, find out what we can do with the materials that we've got. People make amazing films on an iPhone. If they can do that, I believe Demon can too. Okay, wonderful. So, Emily, back over to you quickly. Mike mentioned about budget, and obviously you sort of like have a major role in the Demon, which is obviously something that's, I don't think Demon Media puts enough focus on in terms of money and budget, because you have constant outputs in regards to printing. So what do you think needs to be done with regards to the budget?
In terms of, I know it's a question that gets asked a lot about the magazine, in terms of how much do you actually spend. Our budget is interesting, and it's quite a bit of money. Now, unfortunately, this was based on previous years. Obviously, a lot of Dean Media members may not be aware that in previous years, every month that a magazine was released, at least £1,000 was spent on that magazine. 1,000 copies, which added up to thousands.
Yeah.
We now have cut down to at least a quarter of that every single month that we print, because realistically, we didn't need that much. It's little things like that that I think we need to become more aware of by the activities, going to the activities office. When the transition happened at the beginning of the year, it was made very clear to me that I could go in and I could speak to them about this, and I've managed to budget for the Strand a lot more. People are misled as to how much money we actually spend and how much we're actually given. Even I was misled as to how that money could be utilised at the beginning of the year, and I've had to clarify multiple times throughout the year as to exactly what it is I'm allowed to do with that money. But in my eyes, in terms of budget, we could use it so much more differently, and I do understand that people don't necessarily know where that money goes. I do think it's worthwhile though, because to keep up with most other universities who do print magazines, we do have an outstanding quality of magazine, and even more so this year, in my opinion, than in previous years. And obviously we did a transition 2 years ago. We are moving slowly towards an online publication as well. So we have started putting it online, but of course, one thing we need to improve on is how to publicise ourselves. So especially online, when that picks up, obviously paper copies will decrease as they have done this year, but at the moment its presence on the university campus is appreciated, but obviously we can still monitor budget and just balance it out. It's a matter of being aware of how many copies we actually need, and therefore how much budget we're going to use, and making sure we can find the right resources to print.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's worth it.
Thank you very much, both of you there, for answering the questions. We have unfortunately run out of time, although we do have hundreds of questions we could go to if we really wanted to. But obviously this is the last debate that we will be doing this week, and elections do close tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So do please go vote on the DSU website. It'll all be on there as to how to vote and who to vote for in regards to the candidates there. But thank you very much for tuning in this week, and we will be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock with the live results show. Bye-bye.